For the third episode of UBTV's Reclaim series, we're focusing on reclaiming the night. So I thought I would sit down with two girls who are about to go on a night out in Bristol and talk to them about groping, club culture, and what it means to be a woman on a night out.
Growing up as a woman, you kind of go from two different mindsets. Like when you're younger, and this might be controversial to say, but you know, you kind of get affirmation on some level from being catcalled. I think it's really kind of shocking to admit, but like some girls aren't that offended by it because that's how we receive like compliments. As you grow older, you understand it's completely wrong, and like that isn't a form of affection which should be shown, that isn't consensual. It just makes you feel like super uncomfortable, really vulnerable, and also like just a bit shit. I think obviously like a lot of men don't think it's acceptable, and I think that's really important to point out, that most men don't think it's acceptable to grope women in clubs. But I think honestly there is a crisis in masculinity in this day and age. Like think about it, like how do you get a girl's attention in a club? Like you really like her, what do you do? And I think with the rise of feminism and this notion that women can have it all and things, that it's kind of displaced men and what it means to be a man. Boys are constantly getting like called effeminate for doing things or different things like that. So I think it's almost like it's an act of desperation.
I personally don't leave my house without my pepper spray. I know it's illegal, but so is sexual assault. I absolutely think women should react. I think it's completely unacceptable that we should have to stand for behaviour that we are not comfortable with. Well, there's this notion that if you don't get catcalled in a club or even walking down the street, then for some reason you're not validated that day. I think acceptance and self-validation can only come from inside and not outside. So yes, you have to stand up, and it's definitely a learning process. You have to learn to stick up for yourself and reject the notion that you are validated only based on what a male thinks you are.
So Bristol Zero Tolerance has been running for 2 years. We cover the whole of the city of Bristol, and we look at all forms of gender-based violence, abuse, harassment and exploitation. So we look at campaigning to raise awareness about those issues so people know what they are, and then we look at supporting the services that provide support around those issues. So if people are experiencing that, how do they get support, where do they go, and how can they support those services to exist as well, because a lot of them are under threat. And we also work with businesses, so we go into businesses and we talk to them about the issues and how they can support their staff and also their service users or customers better. So that's why we started working with venues across the city, looking at how they can support people on a night out.
So you go around to nightclubs and you get them to sign contracts, and what exactly are the contracts saying?
Yeah, so we get the venues across the city to sign up to Bristol Zero Tolerance. We've got a pledge that all the organisations that we work with sign, which says that they understand the issues, that they want to do something about it, and that they pledge to take some action around that.
I saw recently in an article that the Avon and Somerset Police are the third force in the UK to now have created a gender category within hate crime because sexual harassment is so awful in Bristol.
Yeah, so we were working with people across Bristol around street harassment, and like you say, that's because there were a lot of women that were coming to us and saying that it was a particular problem here and something they hadn't necessarily experienced elsewhere, or something they wanted to do something about in Bristol. So we started to gather information around that to see what the problem was, where it was happening, to gather data so that we could then lobby the police to make this gender hate crime category become a reality in the city. So we're really, really pleased that we were able to do that, and we're really proud to have worked with Avon and Somerset Police, who really understand the issues around this.
Do you think that some of these places that traditionally would take the pledge, like nightclubs, do you think some of them would be hesitant to do that? They would not want to perpetuate the idea that assault happens within a nightclub, because if you're there on a night out, you don't want to be reminded by posters on the wall that, wow, assault happens in these kind of environments.
Yeah, I think that's true, and there are some venues that we've spoken to who have felt cautious about getting involved because they don't want to highlight the fact that this happens in their venue. But unfortunately, it happens in all venues, and actually, if a venue is saying, well, we take this seriously and we're going to do something about it and we understand the issues, that's more likely to make people want to go there and feel that they're going to be supported as customers and that they'll be safer if they're in that space. The idea is you're going on a night out, you're going to have a fun time, you don't want to be thinking about those things, but the reality is that's happening every day. Every night out.
Because unfortunately, as a young woman, it never really leaves your mind. Like, no matter how much fun you're having, no matter how many drinks you're throwing back, you're always kind of keeping your eye out on potential things happening, someone spiking your drink, someone coming at you from a corner. And I think it is terrifying to be in that kind of enclosed environment, like a busy nightclub where music's pounding and, you know, you might be a little bit inebriated or intoxicated at all, to be attacked in any way, shape or form because you're really confined, and it's claustrophobic in a way, and that's just the most terrifying thing. So I think it's so important for these establishments to really take this on board.
Absolutely, and I think also it's people are understanding the issue now much more than they were before. And I think with the conversations that we're having now, with Me Too and the other conversations that we're having in the public space now, which are really important and very timely, but also should have been happening a long time ago. But people are able to understand that now. So you see men saying, "Wow, I had no idea that's what it's like to be a woman to walk down the street or to go out to a nightclub. I had no idea that that was your experience." So unless we talk about this and share those stories and have that solidarity in the fact, this is happening to a lot of people every day, then we can't necessarily move past it because people don't understand the impact of it.
I think one silver lining of this is that it shows the sheer power of numbers, and hopefully this will create an atmosphere where people can come forward and feel safe about doing so.
Absolutely. I think stopping the normalisation of this kind of behaviour is the key thing, really. So we need to talk to people about the fact that this kind of behaviour just needs to change, and there are other ways you can interact with people which wouldn't make them feel afraid and aren't about power and control, which ultimately gender-based violence is about that.